Today, we're diving deep into the world of egg donation in Malaysia. Now, for so many hopeful parents, it seems like a dream destination, right? But what actually happens when that hope runs into a system with almost no rules? We're about to uncover the hidden risks in a place where good intentions can unfortunately lead to some really devastating outcomes.
So what's the real story here? Is Malaysia this amazing fertility haven that offers a solution when every other door has been shut? Or is it a trap, one that can prey on people when they're at their most vulnerable? That's the big question we're going to get to the bottom of.
You see, while Malaysia's popularity is just booming, all of this growth has happened in a total legal vacuum. And that creates, well, a minefield of misleading info, ethical problems, and financial dangers that can turn a journey of hope into an absolute nightmare.
Okay, so let's start with the good stuff, the promise. What is it that's pulling so many international patients to Malaysian fertility clinics in the first place? What's the big draw?
It really boils down to three main things. First, just sheer availability. You can find paid egg donors here, and that's especially true for ethnic Chinese patients. See, in their home countries, places like Singapore and China, paying for eggs is straight up illegal, which makes finding a donor almost impossible. So Malaysia, with its large ethnic Chinese population, it looks like the perfect, fast solution. And it's that promise that gets the whole journey started.
But this is where the journey starts to get really tricky. Once you're inside the system, a whole bunch of hidden pitfalls start to pop up. We're going to break down the biggest ones for you, from medical procedures you just don't need to straight-up fraud.
So, one of the first major things patients often run into is this expensive add-on called PGTA. It gets pitched as this super high-tech way to screen embryos for big chromosomal problems, the kind that can cause Down syndrome. And look, it sounds like an amazing safety net, but its use in egg donation cases, well, that's where the science gets really, really murky.
And right here, you can see this huge gap between the marketing pitch and the actual science. Clinics will often claim PGTA boosts success rates, but the research, it shows that's mainly true for older women who are using their own eggs. When you're using eggs from a young, healthy donor, it doesn't really help. And what's worse, clinics use the fear of genetic diseases to sell this test. But PGTA is totally useless for finding the most common inherited diseases, things like thalassemia or cystic fibrosis. It's kind of like buying a super expensive home security system that only checks for unlocked windows, but completely ignores that the front door is wide open. And the price tag for this often useless test? It's staggering. Going for PGTA can jack up your total medical bill by up to 50%. That's a massive, massive expense for a procedure that, when you're using a young egg donor, gives you questionable benefits, at best. And it's not just about the money. There are real physical risks here. To do the test, they have to drill a tiny hole in the embryo, which could actually damage it. It's an incredibly delicate process that really depends on the skill of the lab tech, which means human error is always a possibility. And maybe the most cynical part? Some clinics use PGTA as a backdoor to push for expensive sex selection, playing on a patient's preference to sell them yet another pricey add-on.
Okay, the next big choice is fresh versus frozen eggs. Now, at first glance, frozen eggs, they look like a great deal. They're cheaper and the logistics are way simpler. But the one thing that often gets downplayed is the success rate, which is significantly lower than with fresh eggs. On top of that, there's a huge technical risk. The way the egg is thawed has to be perfectly matched to how it was frozen. It's like needing a very specific key for a very specific lock. Using eggs from an outside egg bank can be a massive gamble.
Another huge red flag to watch out for is the traveling donor. Donors who come in from other cities or even other states. This is a perfect example of where quality control just falls apart. The donor is often just sent home with these expensive, temperature-sensitive hormones and told, "Here, inject these yourself." Without a clinic directly supervising, there's no way to know if she's doing it right. If those meds aren't kept in the fridge properly, they're ruined. And the result? The number and the quality of the eggs are shot before the cycle even really gets going.
And at the very heart of so many of these issues is one simple, kind of chilling fact. The agents and the agencies that recruit these donors are completely unregulated. I mean, no laws, no licenses, no oversight. It's a Wild West situation where unethical practices can just run wild with zero consequences.
To really understand how all these risks play out in the real world, we need to look at the devastating story of one Singaporean couple. Their experience is a powerful, powerful cautionary tale about what can happen when you put your trust in a system that has no rules.
So let's walk through this timeline of deception. In early May, the couple signs a contract. They're being pressured by an agent who's feeding them inflated claims about the donor. Just a couple of weeks later, while she's supposed to be committed to them, she does a blood test for a totally different cycle. Then, on June 2nd, she secretly donates her eggs to someone else. A month later, she goes through with the Singaporean couple's cycle. The result? Absolutely horrendous. 0 viable embryos. When the couple finally figured out the truth and confronted the agent, he just disappeared with all their money.
And the deception started right from the get-go. To rush them into a decision, the agent just flat out lied about the donor's previous cycle. He claimed she produced 16 high-quality embryos, while the couple later found out the real number was only 8. This lie was cooked up to make the donor seem like this rare, can't-miss opportunity.
And the clinic? The one that introduced them to this shady agent? Well, when the couple went to them demanding answers, this was their official response. The clinic basically just washed its hands of the whole mess, saying it's up to the donor to be honest. So, no responsibility for the agent they recommended? It's just a complete and total failure of accountability.
In the end, the couple was left with nothing but heartbreak and a huge financial hole. They had spent 55,000 Malaysian ringgit, a massive chunk of their life savings, on a cycle that was doomed from the start.
So this isn't just a story about one bad agent or one really unlucky couple. This is a story about a systemic failure. And it makes you ask the bigger question: why is the system even allowing this to happen in the first place? The whole problem really comes down to this critical gap in the regulations. See, Malaysia has guidelines from its medical council that say, hey, no commercial trading of eggs, but they're not actual legally binding laws. So what happens? A lot of private, profit-driven clinics just don't follow them very strictly. For years, there's been a proposed law on the table, the Assisted Reproductive Technology Act, that would regulate the whole industry. But it's been stalled forever, and this legal vacuum is exactly what allows these unethical agencies and clinics to operate without any fear of consequence. So, given this pretty dangerous landscape, what can you actually do to protect yourself? Really, it comes down to being proactive, asking the tough questions, and just refusing to be rushed. Here's a quick guide to taking back some of that control. Here are 4 absolutely crucial steps you have to take. First, stop a last-minute donor switch dead in its tracks. Have the clinic verify the donor's height, weight, and age at our very first appointment. Second, get rid of the traveling donor risk. Insist on using a local donor who the clinic can actually monitor directly. Third, be your own best advocate. Challenge the need for expensive add-ons like PGTA. Demand to see the scientific proof that it's necessary for your specific case. And finally, sniff out those hidden fees. Ask directly what the clinic's relationship is with the agency.
Look, the journey to build a family is so deeply emotional, and that vulnerability can be exploited in a system that has very few guardrails. It forces every single patient to confront a really difficult question. In this quest, how much blind trust is simply too much?